My name is Maisie Savage, and I'm 32 years old. I still remember the exact shade of gray that morning, the kind that sits low on the sky like a held breath. I had been awake since 4. Not because I was anxious, but because I had been waiting for that day for 3 years. 3 years of night shifts at a logistics company, weekend online courses, 1 failed interview, 2 callbacks that went nowhere, and then, finally, a final round interview at Crane and Holloway Consulting. A real firm. A firm that paid real salaries and offered real futures. The kind of opportunity that does not knock twice. I had pressed my white blouse the night before, laid out my navy blazer, charged my laptop in case they asked for a presentation. I had even memorized the names of the senior partners so I could reference them naturally in conversation. I was ready. Completely, absolutely ready. I came downstairs at 7:15. My mother was standing in front of the door with her arms crossed and her expression already set, that flat, immovable look she wore whenever a decision had been made without consulting you, and she was simply informing you of the outcome. She did not say good morning. She said, "Your sister has brunch today. You're watching her kids." I thought I had misheard her. I actually tilted my head and said, "What?" She repeated it without blinking. I told her I had my final interview. I told her the time, the firm, the stakes. I told her this interview could change my life. She looked at me the way people look at a child who has said something sweet but incorrect and said, "Maisie, your sister made plans." My father was sitting at the kitchen table with his coffee. He did not look up from his newspaper when he laughed, and it was a real laugh, loose and certain, and said, "Girls like you don't get lives. You get duties." I stood there for a moment with that sentence hanging in the air between us. Girls like you don't get lives. You get duties. I want you to understand what that sentence felt like, not as a wound in the moment, but as a diagnosis. As though my father had spent 30-something years studying me and had finally arrived at his conclusion. I was not a person with ambitions. I was a function. A convenient arrangement of a daughter that existed to fill in the gaps of everyone else's calendar. My sister, Raina, arrived at 7:40. She walked in wearing sunglasses and dragging a stroller with the confidence of someone who had never once been told no. She dropped a diaper bag at my feet without making eye contact. Did not say please. Did not say thank you. Did not say anything. Just set it down like a piece of luggage at a hotel check-in and turned to say goodbye to our mother. Something shifted in me in that exact second. Not anger. I want to be precise about this. It was not the hot, blinding kind of anger that makes people say things they regret. It was quieter than that. It was clarity. The kind of clarity that arrives after years of slow accumulation, and then all at once, like a ceiling giving way. I looked at the diaper bag on the floor. I looked at my mother by the door. I looked at my father behind his newspaper and his coffee. I looked at Raina in her sunglasses talking about reservations. And I stepped over the bag. I walked past my mother. I did not use the front door. She was standing in front of it and I did not want a scene. I did not want to give that moment any more weight than I already had. So I went through the kitchen, through the back door, and out into the gray morning with my blazer on and my bag over my shoulder and my heart beating so steadily it almost frightened me. I did not look back. I took the bus to the interview. I arrived 4 minutes early. I sat down across from 2 senior partners and a hiring director, and I spoke for 57 minutes about supply chain restructuring, client retention frameworks, and long-term operational strategy. I answered every question. I asked 3 of my own. 2 days later, they called with an offer. I never went home. 7 years is a long time. Long enough to build something real. Long enough to forget the smell of that kitchen, the sound of that laugh, the weight of a diaper bag dropped at your feet like you were furniture. Long enough, but not so long that you forget what you were told you would never become. After the offer from Crane and Holloway, I threw myself into the work the way only someone with something to prove can. I was not reckless about it. I was methodical. I took every difficult client. I volunteered for the accounts nobody wanted. I stayed late not to impress anyone, but because the work genuinely fascinated me, and because my apartment was quiet and mine and I had never had quiet before. I had never had mine before. I learned the difference between working hard and working smart, and then I learned how to do both at the same time. Within 18 months I had been promoted twice. Within 3 years, I was managing a team of 11. The senior partners began including me in conversations that were not yet my level, which is how you know an organization is watching you and deciding something about your future. By year 4, I was heading a regional division. By year 5, I was being flown to other cities to consult on struggling departments in partner firms. And in the spring of my 6th year after walking out that back door, I was offered the position of director of operations at a mid-sized logistics consultancy called Harvard Group, a firm with 230 employees, clients across 4 countries, and a starting package that would have made my father put down his newspaper. I took it. I restructured the entire client services division within 8 months. I brought in 3 major accounts in the first year alone. The board voted unanimously to expand my authority. By the time I had been there 14 months, I was effectively running the company's day-to-day operations, and everyone in the building knew it. That is when Raina applied for a job. I want to tell you this part slowly because it deserves to be told slowly. I was sitting in my office on a Tuesday morning going through a stack of shortlisted CVs for a new client coordinator position, entry-level administrative support, nothing glamorous, when I saw the name. Maisie Savage. I read it twice. Then I read the cover letter, which was competent enough, and the work history, which showed 7 years of part-time retail positions, a 6-month gap she described as a career transition, and a skills section that listed Microsoft Word and the ability to multitask. She did not know I worked there. I am certain of that. We shared a last name, but Harvard Group is a large company, and she had clearly just applied through the general portal without doing enough research to connect the dots. My assistant had flagged her file with a small note at the top, promising attitude in phone screen. Worth a look. I sat with that file for a long time. I want to be honest with you about what I felt in that moment because I think honesty is what makes a story worth telling. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel the sharp satisfaction you might expect from someone who had been told she would never have a life of her own. I felt something more complicated than that. Something that sat between exhaustion and understanding, and the particular sadness of watching a road not taken from the other side. I approved her application for the in-person interview. She walked into the building on a Thursday. I watched from the glass panel above the lobby. She was wearing a blazer she had clearly borrowed from someone. She looked nervous in the way people look nervous when they genuinely need something. She did not recognize the receptionist as someone I had hired. She did not know the conference room she was escorted to was 3 doors down from mine. The interview panel sent me their notes an hour later. She had interviewed well. Better than well, actually, direct, honest, showed real hunger for stability. They recommended her. I approved the hire. On her first day, I walked into the orientation room and I watched her face go completely still when she saw me. I let the silence sit for exactly 3 seconds. Then I extended my hand and I said, "Welcome to Harvard Group. We expect a lot here and we give a lot in return. I think you'll find it's worth it." She shook my hand. She said thank you. Her voice was very small. I never brought up the diaper bag. I never brought up the interview. I never brought up what my father said about girls like me and duties and lives. I did not need to. The office, the title on the door, the 230 people who reported up through my division, all of it said everything that needed saying, and it said it every single day. Raina has worked for me for 14 months now. She is punctual. She works hard. She has asked me twice for feedback on her performance, and both times I gave it to her straight and she took it seriously. We're not close. We are not sisters the way sisters are supposed to be. But we are professional, and in a strange way that is more than I ever expected us to be. My mother called me 6 months after Raina started. First time in over 4 years. She said she was proud of me. I thanked her politely and told her I had a meeting in 5 minutes, which was true. My father has not called. I think about that morning sometimes. The gray sky, the pressed blouse, the back door closing behind me. I do not think about it with bitterness anymore. I think about it the way you think about a turning point when you are standing far enough away from it to see its full shape. That morning my family told me exactly who they thought I was. And I walked out and spent 7 years proving them wrong. Not for them, but for the 29-year-old version of me who stepped over a diaper bag and chose herself anyway. If you are standing at your own back door right now, if someone is blocking your front door and calling it love, if someone is laughing at your ambitions and calling it realism, I want you to hear this clearly. Step over the bag. Walk out. Do not look back. Your interview is waiting. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because every week on this channel we bring you real stories about real people who refuse to be counted out. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want to know what happened when Maisie finally had the conversation with her mother face to face, comment Maisie below and we will make that episode next.